evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the Edmonton Catholic School Division Virtual Parent Evening, supporting your child's mental health. My name is Jarrell, Manager of Programs and Projects for Edmonton Catholic Schools, and I will be your host for the evening. Understanding and promoting positive mental health in schools is a shared responsibility of parents, educators, and community partners. This evening, I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional land of Treaty 6 and home of the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 4. Now I would like to invite Father Glenn Mcdonald, our school division chaplain, to lead us in an opening prayer.
Hello, my friends. Let's begin. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we ask for your grace and your blessing upon our evening. Fill our hearts with wisdom and openness to your prompting so that we may care best for our young people and our children and our students to help them to flourish and grow. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
I would like to welcome our Edmonton Catholic School Division Board Chair Palazzo to bring greetings on behalf of the Board of Trustees and to welcome her fellow board members.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good evening. My name is Sandra Palazzo, Board Chair and Ward 72 Trustee for Edmonton Catholic Schools. It is indeed an honor to welcome each and every one of you to the Edmonton Catholic Schools information session on supporting your child's mental health. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce my board colleagues. I will begin with our Vice Chair, Lisa Turchansky, Trustee Debbie Engel, Trustee Terry Harris, Trustee Aline Mutala, Trustee Carla Smiley, and Trustee Laura Taber. Thank you all. And on behalf of the board, we wish each and every one of you a happy new year. We can all agree that 2020 was an unusual and unpredictable year. We can now celebrate how we kept moving forward with the educational agenda and embracing all that we have learned through the change and the resiliency that we acquired as a result. Thank you to all our families and their children, and of course to our staff, for all of your patience and support. Your adaptability to working through this new way of living and learning has been indeed impressive. As the COVID-19 situation continues to evolve, our board remains committed to providing support to parents, students, and educators throughout this learning journey. We are extremely grateful to our administration led by Chief Superintendent Robert Barton for organizing this evening's program. For many families, the amount of screen time interaction is a sensitive subject at the best of times. The access to screens has increased significantly in many households, with everything from school to birthday parties taking place online. In addition, you may be working from home, which makes it even harder to know how to put boundaries on your child's screen time. Given all these unusual stressors, there is no one right answer when it comes to managing screen time during the pandemic. Our experts this evening will provide tips to help set expectations, make the most of our increased reliance on smart devices, and support your children in achieving educational success. And most importantly, perhaps, there may be learning to support yourself in these same areas. The objective is for everyone involved in Edmonton Catholic to achieve success in a safe and healthy manner. We trust that the practical advice and strategies shared with you this evening will aid in supporting your entire family over the remainder of the school year and beyond. Thank you for taking the time to attend this event, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees, we wish you all a blessed and prosperous 2021. God bless.
Thank you, Board Chair Palazzo and fellow board members. Now, I would like to invite our Chief Superintendent, Robert Martin, to bring opening remarks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to bring you greetings this evening on behalf of Edmonton Catholic Schools. It's now been just over a year since we began to hear about the COVID-19 virus in North America. When we think back to that time, I believe that it's safe to say that we had absolutely no idea of how dramatically our lives would change in the following weeks and months. We have moved in and out of a virtual remote existence, and that has posed tremendous challenges to our mental health and well-being. We are traveling in uncharted territory as parents and caregivers, and in addition to paying close attention to ourselves, we need to be extra vigilant with our young people. It is our hope that this evening will give you a few more tools to help you support your families in establishing and maintaining good mental health in an increasingly digital world. I would like to thank Superintendent Corrine Gannon, Rhonda Lang, Cheryl Shinkarik, and Gina Doss for all of their work in arranging this evening's session. Their ongoing work in ensuring that the mental health supports for our students are comprehensive and dynamic is absolutely outstanding. I would also like to thank Gary Machurik and Alan Off for their technological magic. On a final note, I would like to thank all of you for joining us tonight. We know that Catholic education is a true partnership between the home, the school, and parish. And when we come together, we do amazing things for our children. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you very much, Chief Superintendent Robert Martin, for sharing your words with our parent community this evening. We are ready to begin the conversation around supporting your child's mental health. I would like to thank you very much for taking the time to contribute your questions to assist us with guiding our evening. We have received many questions and we have tried to focus on the general themes from your questions. Today, we are bringing you a session that will be addressing how to support the mental health of your children and youth during increased screen time, online learning, and times of isolation. With social distancing limiting our ability to connect and physically interact, it is important to find a balance in our lives. What are some of the impacts that the pandemic may be having on your family life? And how, as parents, can you support the social emotional well-being of your child? This session today will have strategies in which you, as parents and caregivers, can share and embrace with your family. Now, I would like to welcome our guests tonight. We have from Edmonton Catholic Schools, Father Glenn Mcdonald, who is a division chaplain with Edmonton Catholic Schools and a pastor of St. Alphonsus and St. Clair. He is originally from Airdrie, Alberta. From Alberta Health Services and the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta, we have Kathy Jarrell, who is a registered social worker and an alumni from our own ECSD. From grades 1 to 12, Kathy attended St. Martin's, Cartier McGee, and Louis Saint Laurent high schools just a few years ago. She is the Alberta lead for the Alberta School Mental Health Literacy Project. Previously, Kathy served as a clinical consultant to support rural educators, physicians, clinicians, and other service providers in their work with children and youth. She also teaches at Mount Royal University. She is the parent of 2 young adults who taught her that there is much more to parenting than what is in social work textbooks. Next, we have up Andrew Baxter, a registered social worker who has worked in school-based and community mental health for over 17 years. During his time with Alberta Health Services, he has provided direct treatment and consultation for students and their families from kindergarten through grade 12. His current role with Alberta Health Services is to serve as the lead for the Alberta Mental Health Literacy Project. His educational background is in social work and psychology. Andrew is actively making parenting mistakes with his 2 elementary-age children at home. We are ready to begin the evening now by turning tonight to our experts. Let us begin by exploring, what do we know now about how youth are faring during this pandemic? Andrew, would you like to start us off for this evening?
Sure. Well, thanks for having us back. This is always fun to do, so good to be back. And I think at risk of repeating something we said last time, this is probably an important point to raise. The pandemic, I think one of the axioms that really fits is that we are all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. It has disproportionately impacted people that are vulnerable, our populations that are struggling already before the pandemic. And it has really shone a spotlight on the gaps in the services and access to care that we have. So we have to keep that in mind when we consider this. Having said that, most of our youth are responding pretty well to the pandemic crisis. Much of what we know right now is coming from survey data, where we're interviewing and getting youth to report on their own well-being, as well as that from their information from parents. One of the critical studies that's going on right now is being led by Dr. Kelly Schwartz out of the University of Calgary. And he's looking at students in metropolitan areas in Alberta, of which ECSD is included. And right now they've got responses from over 2,300 kids, so it's a fairly good number of youth that are reporting. And some of the interesting findings I'll highlight a few of them. But it's important to know that we always have to be careful when we're looking at survey data. There's always a bit of a gap in between what's going on, what we think might be going on, and how we report on it. But we're finding that youth are actually more worried about confinement with their families than actually the health risks of COVID-19, which is probably developmentally appropriate for youth that are exploring their own social identity at this point in time. We know that stresses are high, and we know that 58% of Albertans have had a reduction in their income in their families, and that's certainly put things under stress. However, generally speaking, people are reporting around 75% are actually doing pretty well in response to the pandemic. We've seen some positive increases. People are more engaged in their hobbies, about 60% reporting increases around that, and about 86% have done some more household projects. And generally, parents are reporting that kids are keeping on top of their schoolwork with about 75%. So we've seen some good stuff there. However, with Dr. Schwartz's study, we're seeing that between the first time that they interviewed the youth and the second time, so this is called a time 1 and time 2 data collection, that things are wearing on us. The period of isolation and the length of the pandemic, it's kind of eroding at our ability to keep carrying on. So it's catching up to us over time, but still youth are doing pretty well. Again, I think most likely the youth that were vulnerable before the pandemic are the ones that I'm most concerned about right now. One of the things that we're noticing is that we really need to focus on sleep. And I think with school stopping and starting, and now it's starting again, but really sleep and structure to our day kind of drifted away. So one of the key recommendations their study is currently making is that we really need to make sure we get that good restorative sleep. Again, we know that we were having issues with sleep regulation prior to the pandemic, but with that loss of shape and structure, that's a critical piece. Keeping the exercise going is also really important. It's been more challenging to connect socially, but we'll talk a little bit about that later, but needing to keep that up, and then of course, good eating, and those things together are going to really support that ongoing wellness for students.
Well, thanks very much, Andrew, for sharing some of the insights into Dr. Schwartz's research. And yes, Edmonton Catholic Schools was involved in the first wave of collection. And secondly, they are just completing that second wave of collection data and understanding that it is time that is wearing on our youth today, and some of the impacts, and as a result, the importance of taking care of ourselves, that self-care piece. Kathy, would you like to add some of your thoughts to how you think youth are faring right now during the pandemic?
Right. Well, I think it's really important what Andrew shared around having that overall context. But I would encourage parents to hone in on their children, because you know your children well. How are they doing? Right? It goes a long way to normalize and validate, like, yes, this is getting really tiring, isn't it? Right? To have uncomfortable feelings is part of good mental health. So even just validating that, helping them come up with the words. Sometimes we all know if we're struggling, sometimes a well-timed yeah is helpful. We don't have to say brilliant things always, just acknowledging that, yeah, this is getting tiring. We're all feeling that, right? So, and that kind of encouragement about, what can you do? We'll probably bring this up later too, but really notice also, look out for really distinct changes in your child's behavior and what they're saying. And that can be cues for you around maybe seeking out some extra support, but just validating for sure that this isn't easy and that and share your own experience about how this is feeling really long. We couldn't have imagined back in March that we would maybe still be in this spot. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Kathy, that's showing and sharing those thoughts about, the importance of being vulnerable and sharing your thoughts with your children is an important process or step in that bonding and creating that family connection, which is the second question that we're going to be addressing with Father Glenn. What suggestions do you have for maintaining or even strengthening family connections during these difficult times?
I would suggest that, we have to view the pandemic as an opportunity, because if I approach a situation of how can I get through this, kids are really sensitive to that, and they know this, whatever measure we're just doing temporarily, and then when the vaccine comes, we'll stop. So I would invite parents to say, try to look at the pandemic as this is an opportunity for our family to bond in a way that we would never have before. And it's a time when we can transmit culture, family traditions, recipes, rituals in a way that, before, we may have just been too busy. And to really try to create beautiful memories, whether it be family dinners or teaching, my sister, she talks about when my grandmother taught her how to make plum loaf, which is a meal that we just treasure in our family. This is a time when we can do that. And we can also create habits that we want to keep after the pandemic is over, because it just creates that sense of normalization for kids of, instead of this being a coping technique, this is something our family is going to do 5 years from now, and we will treasure it as part of our strengthening. So just that reflection question of this is an opportunity to transmit new traditions and experiences that will stay with our family and our child for years to come.
Well, thank you so much, Father Glenn, for sharing with us the importance of tradition and also the importance of maybe slowing down and taking in this time and seeing it as an opportunity to strengthen the bonds and connections. Kathy, would you like to contribute some further thoughts or comments to social connections and the family time that we spend together?
Sure, I so agree, Father Glenn, that there's opportunity in this. So I think the tricky part, or just putting together our comments, is acknowledging, not denying or invalidating when people are struggling, but also helping them, to reframe, right? So acknowledging those feelings and then looking for those places where I wonder, if we can see this as a challenge. A challenge is a word that kind of calls us to regroup and try again, and what can be the blessings that come out of this opportunity. And so I think, Father Glenn, your examples were great around trying some different recipes, doing some other kinds of family activities. I have a friend who said her kids are 4 years apart and they had very different friend groups. But since this has started, they had to look at each other and go, well, I guess we're it to play with each other. And they're finding some different activities that they can really enjoy together. And so hopefully that will last beyond this time.
Thank you, Kathy. And Andrew, maybe you want to share with us some of your thoughts with your children and the family time that you've been spending together and how that has strengthened the bond that's occurring within the family atmosphere.
Yeah, we actually had the 12 nights of Christmas board games. So, I had to brush off my Clue knowledge and get ready to do some serious puzzling. So that was some nice family time to be spent.
Great. Well, thanks, Andrew. Right now there are so many questions about screen time. Like, how much is too much? And does screen time really matter? We need to accept that there has been an increase of screen time for most families now, but it is also important to find balance and focus on our mental wellness. Kathy, what are some of your thoughts on screen time and the increase that's occurred during this pandemic?
Right. And I did look at the resource that Edmonton Catholic Schools has up there on your website around screen time. And I thought it was very, very wise pointers. So first of all, not to panic, not to think like, oh, we're failing as parents because we're allowing our children to have more screen time. I think, again, your children will take the cue from you around what's okay. If it just makes sense for even for parents to have a little break, to spend some more time on the screens, that's okay, right? And again, all screen time is not the same, right? There's learning. There's also maybe the way that they can keep connected with friends. That's really important. But it is also really important to have some good conversations with your kids around screen time, and especially some of the social media. I was looking at some stats from HubSpot, and it said, I thought this was just worth pointing out, 84% of parents believe that their children would come to them if they were being harassed or bullied online. But can you guess what the percentage of kids said who were experiencing this? How many of them went and confided to their parents? Under 10%. And you can guess why. They're worried of the consequence of losing all of their social media, of losing their devices. So I think as parents, it would be very wise just to bring that up. Even to say, I've heard these statistics that lots and lots of kids, even if they're really struggling online, are reticent to talk to their parents. Gee, I would never want that to happen to you. Let's talk about it. I think that would be really important. So do pay attention to what type of activities your children are. Do have those safety talks around not accepting invitations from people they don't know. Find out yourselves. There's some really good resources out there around what's safer. Keep that channel open and have those conversations with your kids.
Thanks, Kathy, for bringing up one of the resources on Edmonton Catholic School Division's website regarding some of the screen time. And we know that screen time is right now unavoidable because our school and our socializing is happening online, but it's still important to have some boundaries and to really open up the conversations with our children. Father Glenn, what do you feel about screen time during the pandemic?
Well, it has reinforced a learning that I have about young people, and that like they interact with the internet in a way that I don't, in that I find they have like two identities, their online life and their offline life. And so we have to approach them from that perspective, as like they have like these two lives that they live, one of which we are able to witness a lot about, and one is like a land without parents. And so I get that there can be a temptation when we do a lot of screen time right now to say, oh, we have to reduce that. But what we're really saying is we're taking away, as Kathy mentioned, we're like taking away this one identity that you have. So instead, like, I think we have to approach it as like, we want our children to be caring and sharing individuals, both offline and online. And not only that, but we want a sense of like integration. So when we talk to them, we're like really talk about, how is their offline or online life, and is this marked by caring and sharing? And are you the same person when I talk to you face to face as you are online? And because if there's not, like if there's an imbalance there, especially if it becomes extreme, I've noticed where students, like where they want to drift, they want to live online, because they're trying to avoid something in their regular life that is not comfortable for them. And I say this with real, like, this is a sort of tough love comment for parents, is I invite you to ask yourself, how welcome does my child feel at home? Because I've spoken to students where they flee to online life because there's something they don't know how to deal with here. And so when you look at their internet life, it's a great like indicator for you as a parent of like how your child is doing. And if whatever we can do to help them to feel more at home in their home, we're going to be making sure that balance is correct.
Well, thank you so much to all of you for your insights and your advice and recommendations about screen time, but yet the understanding that it is important to make connections. So now, Kathy, what about the importance of making and nurturing those social connections? How important is that right now?
Well, I think it's vital. It's vitally important. And again, going back to acknowledging that it's more challenging, also looking at how social connections can be maintained. Again, I have a friend who said, let's get out some letter writing. Even a student that I work with in a counseling situation, he makes wonderful origamis. And I'm like, can you send these out? Like there's different kinds of ways of keeping that social connection. I, for myself, have reconnected with some friends who live in other cities. And it's been and some Edmonton Catholic School alumni. We've had meeting from friends from Victoria and New Brunswick, and it's been wonderful to reconnect on Zoom. And of course, we could have done it before, but this was kind of the impetus to take that time to connect socially. So absolutely understanding that is an absolute need for children to connect.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Andrew, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. I'll go back to the screen time thing because there just was an overwhelming number of questions from parents about that. So I know this is front of mind. The research, right now, it's challenging when it comes to screen times. I think one of the things that we know is that as soon as we get studies going on Facebook, it changes to Instagram and all the youth leave. So we're desperately trying to catch up. And in fact, we're still basically trying to figure out television before we've got to tablets and computers and all the other things. So as Kathy mentioned, not all screen time's created equally. Right now, research from Dr. Sherry Madigan is saying that it's about 22 and a half hours per week right now for the average kid during pandemic. And so that's a lot. We also know that it's not created equal. So are they using that time to reach out and connect with others, which can be really important? Are they using it for gaming or research or school? And that's really confusing how we tease that all apart. And there's a lot of disparity in what the research is saying right now. We really don't truly understand the effects and all the ins and outs of it. So we've got to go back to sort of practical applications for parents. What can they say and do? I think I would say start the rules early with technology. It's always easy to let it get away from you. If they grow up with those restrictions on how they interact with technology, like yes, you can have a phone, but it gets checked in and out during the day, or we're going to limit the number of apps or the amount of time that you have it. Set those limits early. It's always easier to have it. Pre-plan with the youth. Let them know when you're going to allot time. Watch your own screen time. Youth will often do what we do and perhaps not listen to what we say, but do what we do. So do check what you're doing on your own screen time. We do know, then, the one thing that the research does agree with is that it doesn't impact all youth equally. And so having that really essential understanding and knowledge and relationship with your child to know how it impacts them is critical here. And then finally, I'm going to say to make sure you look for any disruptions in the youth's functioning with screens, because they may respond differently depending on what they're doing. So if you're seeing them not sleep or turn up social engagements, preferring a screen. If you see them becoming irritable with too much screen or a type of screen, that's when it's time to intervene. So look for changes in social performance or academic performance or other engagements. That kind of stuff is going to be a good indicator about when it's becoming problematic. So that's what I'll add in.
Some great strategies, Andrew, for our parents and caregivers this evening. Father Glenn, any further insights into the importance of social connections?
Well, I would say I'm amazed at how much students now realize that school is awesome. Like they love going to school now, like they just can't wait. And so we have that piece, and the other piece is that parents and guardians have a role in the lives of their child that cannot be replaced by anything. By that I mean kids want to be close to their parents. Like they're just hardwired for that. And if you I know we can be like a little concerned and afraid about the screen time and how this is going, but you as parents and guardians, you have this ACE card that when we send our kids to school, they are going to have social interaction, like they can't wait. And when you reach out to them with, listening ear, compassion, gentleness, they are going to respond to that. Social media cannot compete with that. It tries, but it just can't. And so just know that you have that ACE card that you can always play that will draw your child into greater social interaction.
Great, and great strategies and ideas. And even for our students that are learning online at home, is the opportunity to be within the Teams virtual platform and meeting with their teacher one-on-one and meeting with their peers from their class is very exciting because it gives them that opportunity to socially connect with others, even if it is in a virtual platform. So Kathy, maybe we want to focus on some parenting tips and strategies that you could share with us this evening. Kathy, for some reason we don't hear you. If you could check your, yes, great.
I did the old talking while muted trick, which I think I could have learned by now. But again, children will see when we mess up, and that's okay. We just carry on. So Jarrell, the questions that you had shared that came in, there were lots from parents concerned about setting limits for children. And here's the thing, we have to set limits. Limits have us feeling safer. But of course, your children won't run to you and say, please set some limits for me, right? That's not going to happen. So that's what we get the big bucks for as parents, is some of those tough things around setting limits. And an important part that I think saves parents a lot of struggle is anticipating some of the challenges ahead of time. Where it's hard around, when do we decide that enough screen time is enough? Yes, we've made a decision as a family that we're going to gather up the phones so that nobody's on the phone at 2 a.m. When I took the phone from my daughter, she wasn't too happy, and there was the excuses of, I need it for an alarm. No, we have the old-fashioned alarm clocks. That's okay. Later on, she came back to me and said, you know what? I guess there was a lot of drama amongst my friends. I'm so glad I wasn't a part of it, right? So it became as close as I could get to getting a, thank you for setting a limit. So if we anticipate some of those things, think through what our bottom line parenting is, that makes it easier. And when your kids don't like it and they come up to complain about it, here's a couple of great phrases that I learned from Parenting with Love and Logic. Turn to them and say, love you too much to argue. And they can say, but, and then you can practice at home, go, love you too much to argue. Or a version of that is, love you too much to spoil you. And just say it in a really bored tone too. And then they kind of give up. They're kind of like, okay, this is not happening to be changing. So again, at the end, you do have not only influence, as Father Glenn says, you also have means. For example, you can change the Wi-Fi passcode anytime you want in the night. You can figure out some of those bottom lines. If a behavior is occurring that you're having a lot of difficulty with, you have more than one opportunity to experiment how you can handle those kinds of things. And again, the more that we can show up in a calm and clear way with our kids, that also helps them feel more secure. Right? So if we lose our temper, which we will, I think I lose the Parent of the Year award probably by noon on January 1st every year. So we're going to mess up sometimes, and that's okay. But if we can, collect ourselves and be really calm and collected when we're dealing with our kids, then they're more likely to take responsibility. An example I use is if a police officer pulls you over when you're speeding, if he gets really angry and yelling at you, your reaction is probably defensiveness. Same thing with our kids, right? What happens if the officer says, you were clocked in at that speed, here's your options for pay, I hope you have a better day? Then I'm more likely to take responsibility. Same thing with our kids. If we can just be level with them, give them some options, let them deal with natural consequences, that's always better, right? Another thing parents get caught in is they over-explain. Children usually know when they've messed up. So if after that speeding ticket, if I came home and my husband said, well, you have to match up the speed that's on the sign there with how much you push the gas pedal, would we want to hear that? No, we know we messed up. So sometimes parents save your energy around, yada, yada, yaing at them when they've messed up and say, that's too bad that's the consequence. I'm sorry that you weren't able to follow through, or you'd promised me that you'd clean your room before that. I'm sad about that. So if you can be a little bit sad instead of mad and let the consequences teach, what that does is not only helps the child take more responsibility, it preserves your relationship. So if you don't remember anything else I say tonight, say, if you can be sad instead of mad, that will help in the relationship. And think about enforceable statements, right? What you're prepared to do. I'm willing to allow this when this is done, Sure, you can go on the screens after you've done the dishes, and that's more helpful. A few thoughts tonight.
Well, thank you, Kathy. It really is important as parents and caregivers to provide guidance and balance for our children. Andrew, any parenting tips for our viewers today?
Oh.
My turn to do it. I was thinking about this, and Kathy and I were talking. One of my old favorite exercises from years back is something I took from Dr. Russell Barkley. It's a little exercise parents can do at home. You go home and you divide a piece of paper in half, and on the one column you write down all the best things about a manager that you had or a boss that you've worked with, and all their qualities and why you liked working for them. And then the other hand, you can write your worst one down. And then just sit back and reflect on what are the elements that are there, and which one is your parenting style more like? Are you providing clear direction on a task? Are you setting appropriate timelines for those? Do you have an open door policy? It's just a really neat exercise to sit down and take a look at how we're presenting ourselves as parents. And then my final little piece of advice is, we're right now in the middle of a pandemic. I think things are going to look very different a year from now than they did a year ago, and as they are right now. So this too shall pass.
I would like to finish tonight with some final thoughts and words of wisdom for our parents and caregivers from our guests. Kathy, would you like to put in your final thoughts?
Sure thing. I would just encourage parents to take really good care of yourselves. You can't give from an empty well, as we often say. And there's another part to this. When you take good care of yourself, you're modeling to your children that they need to take good care of themselves. When they're in future relationships and stuff, you don't want them to discount their own needs, right? At work or with their friends, you want them to be able to take care of themselves. It's not a selfish thing. It's so that we can give to others. So do model that. And when you're struggling, when you're finding that you have an emotional reaction that's less than you would want, share that with your kids. let them see that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay. It's a healthy thing to apologize and have a reset. And so I wish you well, my fellow travelers and Edmonton Catholic School folks. Thank you very much for inviting me this evening.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Andrew?
Well, now that Kathy took everything that I was going to say, I'll just add in that I think I'm a much better parent when I parent proactively, when I give myself some time and space to reflect upon what I want to do, and I pre-plan what I'm going to talk to my kids about. It goes much better that way than being reactionary. So be intentional about that time. Take some time to reflect on how you want to approach something that might be sticky in your household, a difficult challenge or a reoccurring problem. Really reflect on it, and you're just going to do better with it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And Father Glenn, your final comments for this evening?
Yeah, I'm not a parent myself, but when I see families and the challenges of it, I just want to say thank you for being parents. It's parenting, I don't think has ever been easy in any generation, and the fact that you showed up tonight to participate in this evening shows that you're really thinking about how to care for your child. So on behalf of the school, of the church, I want to say thank you for your initiative and your care, and know that you are in my prayers to help support and lift up all our parents and guardians in this wonderful vocation of love that God has given them.
Thanks for all of your insight for helping support parents with their children and youth. You might be thinking, where can I turn to for more specific family strategies? I would like to share with you the Ecsd public website and show you where you can find some further resources and supports. The first site is under Mental Health, Social Emotional Learning. Here you will find information on how to support social emotional well-being of your child. In the section on increased screen time strategies to support SEL, we have some very valuable suggestions, tips, and advice. The first resource is Pandemic Screen Time, Guidance for Parents and Caregivers During COVID-19. This resource has many suggestions and concrete strategies to support the mental health of the family when dealing with increased screen time. The next resource is from the Canadian Mental Health Association, and this website focuses on connecting with others during difficult times. The next site is Promoting Physical Literacy. Developing physical literacy is an essential part of child development. Encouraging our children to move in a variety of environments builds confidence and competence in movement. This helps to build lifelong engagement in physical activities. Check out the resources for getting active in the outdoors during the winter. The Move and Play Through the Winter provides fun ideas and activities to get active and play in the outdoors. Keep in mind that coming up on February 3rd is Alberta Winter Walk Day, so get out with your family and explore the outdoors and go for a walk. These are just a few of the resources, but please take the time to explore the Edmonton Catholic Schools website for further information and supports. I would like to thank our fabulous ECSD tech team, Gary Mockrock, Alan Aw, and Martin Ole, for supporting us with allowing this virtual evening to occur. I would like to thank each one of you for taking the time to register for the evening, submitting your questions, and attending tonight's virtual evening. On behalf of the Edmonton Catholic School Division Board of Trustees and staff, we appreciate all of your continued guidance that you are providing to your child to support their mental health and well-being.